And of course, at this time of year and coming up to this weekend, more Canadians might be reaching for this sunscreen this long weekend. But Statistics Canada has released the results of 2 health reports looking at sun exposure and melanoma. And among their findings, the rate of melanoma skin cancer in Canada continues to rise, and especially among men. Well, for her thoughts, we've reached Annette Sear. She's a 3-time melanoma survivor and founder of the Melanoma Network of Canada, and she's also chair of the board. Good morning to you, Annette.
Good morning.
It's nice to speak to you. Thank you for joining us. What stood out for you, Annette, in these reports from Statistics Canada?
Well, a couple of things. I think it reinforced our idea that the male population is seeing a significant rise in melanoma in the last number of years. And as well, the more southern you are located in this country, the higher the levels of exposure that one has to UV radiation.
Why is there a division then between the men and the women? Why are women seemingly doing better in terms of at least getting it looked after? Why are men not getting the message about the seriousness of melanoma?
Well, I think women probably get a lot more pressure about wrinkles and taking care of one's skin, and a lot of the products that we have some sun protection factor in them. But as well, I think men are a little bit more resistant to putting on sunscreen and wearing protective clothing. So, and as well, you've got a lot of outdoor jobs where they're still highly dominated by the male population. So outdoor exposure over a length of time can obviously lead to skin cancers or, more seriously, melanoma.
And yet a lot of people think, well, the more you're exposed, the more resistance you're building up. That is still something people will say.
It's crazy, honestly. It's like, how many times do you wear the tread on your tire and your tires get stronger? I don't think so. So the skin is the same. We constantly damage it by tanning, and eventually the DNA gets affected in your skin cells and may not be detected by your immune system and taken out. So, the constant exposure is definitely damaging to the skin and is potentially putting you at risk.
Apart from constant exposure, remind us of the other risk factors.
Yeah, there's several of them. Obviously, if your skin is light, the lighter the skin, the more or higher risk you are. So a lot of us in North America came from Northern European climates, our ancestors, and we have lighter skin by very nature. And so light skin, light eyes, light hair are very higher risk redheads as well for developing skin cancers and melanoma. If you have more than 50 moles, the incidence is higher. If you have a family history of melanoma, or if you have an immunosuppressed situation, we get older, our immune systems don't work as well, or some people have immunosuppressed because of disease or other drug therapies.
Annette, you yourself, I mentioned in that introduction to you, you're a 3-time survivor of melanoma. When were you first diagnosed?
I was diagnosed back in 2001. I had a very tiny mole on my ankle, and it was itchy and sore. And unfortunately, I waited about a year before I actually had it checked out, which is, not that uncommon. And I think that's probably more uncommon in men to have it checked out on an earlier stage. But anyway, I had it removed and biopsied. It came back positive for melanoma. I went through several surgeries, skin grafts, all sorts of scans and such. And fortunately, it was caught early, but and it wasn't supposed to return, but it did come back again, and it had spread. And in 2007 and again in 2012, I had recurrences of the disease and went through numerous scans and appointments and surgeries, and ended up having to take some chemotherapy, which was pretty awful. And I feel fortunate to actually be here today because the outlook was pretty grim at the time. Since 2012, there has been advances in treatment of melanoma, but it is one of the most aggressive forms of cancer out there, most highly mutated forms of cancer, and has been traditionally very resistant to chemotherapy or radiation.
And yet, Annette, I would say that a lot of people still think that it's not the worst form, that, it's not that serious. Little mole in your ankle, well, you can get that removed and you'll be grand. Don't people kind of tend to think that?
I know. And, patients complain to me constantly, and I went through it as well. People said, oh, thank God it's only skin cancer. You can easily get that treated. I tell you, if I had a nickel every time somebody said that. But, there's a difference. Basal cell carcinoma is the most common cancer diagnosed in the world, and that's the type of skin cancer that is fairly easily treatable. Most people do not die of that disease, but it can cause a lot of disfigurement and a lot of discomfort for awful lot of people. Squamous cell is another type of cancer, which is a little bit more aggressive, and people struggle with that one as well, and there's a direct UV radiation link with that one as well. But melanoma is a different bird altogether and tends to be very aggressive if not caught early, and needs to be identified early. So men need to step up and check their skin and wear protective measures.
And yet we're trying our best to put that long winter behind us. People are just so keen to get out now this weekend, every other weekend from here on in. What's the advice?
Well, so am I, and I'm an avid gardener, and I love to be outdoors. Who doesn't? Who picks a gloomy day over sunshine? And it has been quite a gloomy spring. So, but what I say is enjoy it. Enjoy the outdoors, but do it smartly. Do it sun safe. And that's easy to do. Wear a hat, wear sunglasses. You use a SPF 30 sunscreen. There's so many good products available out there now. And as much as possible, wear UPF protective clothing. There's so many different clothing manufacturers producing great sunscreen clothing and protective clothing, or just wear a thick weave clothing on as much of your body as possible.
Great advice. Annette, lovely to speak to you. Thank you.
And you. Thanks so much. Have a great weekend.